Move over mozzarella sticks because my crispy cheese sticks are gonna knock your socks off. I developed this recipe years ago. It is my homage to mozzarella sticks, except these are homemade and really, really fun. And the secret is sandwich bread. I'm using Wonder Bread, so you might just say these happen to be wonderful. And the first thing I'm gonna do is beat an egg into a mixing bowl. To this, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese. And I would say for this recipe, just go with the ordinary stuff that you find already shredded in the grocery store. And so this is finely grated Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. For this, you wanna go with the good stuff because it adds a ton of flavor. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add some kosher salt and some freshly ground black pepper. Then I have a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper, which is gonna give it a little bit of heat. And I wanna add something really fresh to this, so I'm gonna add fresh parsley because I'm just gonna pick off some leaves here. I want about 2 tablespoons. It's okay if you get some of the little stems that you see in here, kind of take the leaves off the larger stem. But because we're mincing it, you don't have to think about it too much. And I like to kind of twist it and wrap it around so that you have it in a tight little bunch. And when you cut things like herbs, you don't wanna chop down too hard like this. You kind of wanna let your knife slide through the herbs, and that prevents you from bruising it too much. So we've got all of our ingredients in here, and I'm just gonna use the fork to kind of mix it up. That cheese is gonna help everything bind itself together. Now here comes the really cool part. This is the mad genius part of the recipe. So I'm gonna stack anywhere from 4 to 5 slices right on my cutting board, and then I'm just gonna cut off the crusts. But don't throw these away because these actually make really good breadcrumbs. So what I do is I collect all these and I run them in a food processor to get them nice and crumbly, and then I freeze them. Now, I'm going to take a rolling pin, which I know everybody has. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can even use an empty wine bottle. That works too. You just want to get it really flat. And I like to start in the center, roll one out, go right back to the center and roll in the opposite direction. And then I flip it and I do the exact same thing. I like to tell people this is my sandwich bread kind of dumpling or wonton wrapper. I've got my oil at 350 degrees, so I know it's ready to go. Some water, handy dandy little pastry brush. If you don't have one of these at home, you can definitely just use your fingers, it's fine. And what I'm gonna do is take about a heaping tablespoon of the filling, and I'm gonna put it right into the center of the wrapper. So you're just gonna lightly brush the edges. You don't want it too wet. You just want it kind of evenly moistened so that the edges of the bread can adhere to itself. Make sure it stays in there, and you're gonna press down the edges like this. I like to pick it up and just kind of hold it as I'm doing it to make sure it's getting nice and sealed. And you don't have to worry too much if it's a little shaggy on the edges, but sometimes I'm a perfectionist and I like to just kind of cut off if there are any little kind of wispy edges of the bread. Super easy. It's a little hot pocket. So I have about 5 here. I'm gonna make more because I think I can eat 5 by myself, but I'm gonna get these frying. So let's just test it. There you go, look at that. Just kind of push it in away from you. And these go pretty quickly. They take anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, so you wanna watch them because all you're really doing is getting them really crispy on the outside and gooey melty on the inside. Now let me show you what you're looking for. So I think this is the first one I put in. Look how crispy and golden that's getting on the outside. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip it just like this, put it right back in the oil. Ooh, yum. If you have a stubborn one like this that doesn't wanna stay flipped over, you can just kind of hold it with your tongs. A classic but mad genius tip. So these have been in for about 2 minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and transfer them to my prepared baking sheet. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep frying the rest of these guys. And one thing that you can do if you're gonna kind of stay here and do batch after batch, is you can pop these in a 200-degree oven while you fry all the batches so that they stay hot and so the cheese stays gooey. Ooh, they kind of look like those awesome little crispy fried pizza rolls you ate in college, or like I ate last week. I love those little pizza rolls. Final batch is coming out. And these actually stay really crispy for a very long time. And to make these even better, I am serving them with a classic marinara sauce. So I'm gonna break into one of these because I want you to see how awesome this is. Look, you kind of hear how crispy it is. It's really hot to the touch. Listen, can you hear that? Can you hear that? Here we go. Oh, look at that cheesy, gooey, cheesy. Put that down and put a little marinara sauce on it. You just wait. You wait till you make this recipe at home. Now, I want you to know, you should definitely take my word for it. With this mad genius recipe for crispy cheese sticks, your mozzarella stick situation will never be the same. That is crazy good. Okonomiyaki is a classic Japanese pancake, and you can top it with all these really fun toppings. It's really delicious. My version has a mad genius twist, and it uses one of my favorite tools in the kitchen, which is a waffle iron. So I've preheated my waffle iron. As you can see, a little steam comes off it. And this is a Belgian waffle iron, so that's the one you want to use for this tip. And I'm gonna go ahead and take a couple slices of bacon, and I'm just gonna go ahead and add it right to the waffle iron. And this is gonna do two things. Not only is this going to cook the bacon, because we want to cook it, but it's also going to kind of help grease the waffle iron so that we're not having to use any non-stick coating. And I have it on about medium-high heat. I'm gonna close the top. Doesn't have to be perfect. The bacon is gonna shrink as it cooks, and I'm gonna close it, and this is gonna go for about 5 minutes. So in the meantime, I am going to start my pancake batter. So the first thing I need is 2 large eggs. Crack these right in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just take a whisk and just give it a quick little mix. Now I'm going to add chicken stock. And this is kind of classic in okonomiyaki, where you make a custard using eggs and a broth. So I'm just gonna drizzle it in, and I also am gonna add about a half a teaspoon of kosher salt, about a tablespoon of melted unsalted butter, right in there, and then I have a half a cup of all-purpose flour. Add that pretty much all at once. And at this point, you don't want to mix it too much. Instead, I'm just going to mix it until it's barely smooth. All right, that looks pretty smooth to me. You kind of see how the batter is just a little thick, but not too thick. And we're gonna go ahead and check the bacon, because I hear that it's stopped sizzling. So I'm gonna give it a little peek. Whoa, look at it. Actually, what I wanna do here is I'm just gonna actually kind of flip it over so that it gets brown on all sides, because I want it to be nice and crispy. Close, and I'm gonna continue getting my other ingredients together. I'm also going to incorporate some green cabbage. So here I have just a quarter of a green cabbage, and I'm going to shred it pretty finely and just go really thin. And I need just about a half a cup. That looks good. And I'm going to cut some carrot. So I actually don't like to peel my carrots. Instead, I take a small vegetable brush and just run it under a little cool water to get off any grit. To shred this, just slice it on an extreme bias, on a really sharp angle, really thinly. Stack up your little slices, just like that. And you have these beautiful little slivers of carrot. And now I just need a little bit of scallion. I need about a quarter cup of scallion, so I probably just need about 2 here. Then I'll probably have just enough left over so that I can garnish it at the end. Let's check this out. This looks good to me. I'm just gonna go ahead and transfer it right over here. Okay, so my waffle iron is nice and hot. We're gonna almost use it like an electric skillet or a griddle. And I'm gonna take about half the cabbage, scatter it right on top. Whoa, you can see actually how it kind of starts to sizzle and fry. Look how cool that is. We're gonna add half of our carrots as well, and then about half our scallions here. We're gonna let that cook for about 30 seconds just to kind of slightly soften the vegetables. And you can see that the carrots and scallions, actually their color gets much brighter. That's how you know they're kind of crisp, tender. And we're gonna add half of our pancake batter. And again, we are not closing the waffle iron just yet. So we're gonna go ahead and pour this on nice and evenly. Beautiful. So you wanna let this go. It's on high, and we wanna cook it just until the eggs start to set around the edge. Okay, so it's been about 30 seconds. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna close the waffle iron. You're gonna close it very gently, and you're not gonna lock it. In this case, my waffle iron doesn't have a latch, but some of them come with a little latch. Do not flip it. So let it go. All right, and in about 30 seconds, we are gonna have the most mad genius okonomiyaki you've ever had. All right, while that cooks, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish slicing these scallions for garnish. And for that, I wanna go on a real bias, because I want these kind of beautiful slivers to put on top. And these will be really pretty sprinkled on top at the end. You ready? You ready? Here we go. Whoa, look at that. It's puffed up but you could still see all the carrots and the scallion and the cabbage. And so I like to take a fish spatula, and I'm just gonna kind of lift it up very gently. It's very hot, and you're gonna flip it over itself. There we go. And then you're gonna transfer it to a little serving plate, just like this. Now, I get to top it with some of my favorite things in the whole entire world. The first one, everyone knows this guy, sriracha. It's fiery, it tastes a little sweet, it's so good on this. And then of course we have Kewpie, which is Japanese mayonnaise. It's seasoned mayonnaise, it's so good. We're gonna top it with our beautiful scallions. And now the secret ingredient, which is bonito. And bonito is shavings of dried tuna. What you do is you just take the little shavings and look at them go. They start to curl up because of that heat just kind of activates them right when they hit it. And last but certainly not least, we have our bacon, which I'm gonna just chop up into little pieces, or you can break it, and that goes right on top. And what I'm getting that you're not getting is this smells so good. Get a little sriracha. With a little help from my trusty waffle iron, I have made a mad genius version of okonomiyaki. Believe it or not, you can make puff pastry at home, and you can do it in just 15 minutes. All right, the first thing I'm gonna do is I've put this slicer blade on my food processor. I'm gonna close it, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this food processor to slice some butter. All right, so I've got 1 3/4 sticks of butter that I've frozen for about 20 minutes, and I'm going to gently feed it in through the slicer blade, and this is gonna slice my butter. Ooh! All right. So transfer all your sliced butter to a plate or a bowl and pop this in the freezer while you make your dough. And I like to use a really nice butter, so buy the best you can because you're really gonna taste it in something like a puff pastry. So now you're going to attach your blade, and I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of bread flour. And the reason I'm using bread flour is because it's much stronger. And we're gonna be rolling this quite a few times in a row, so we wanna make sure that we're using something that has a lot of gluten and it's gonna be easy to kind of roll out. And to that, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of kosher salt. And I wanna give this a quick whirl. There we go. Now, with the food processor running, I'm gonna drizzle in anywhere from 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of cold water. And what you're looking for is the dough just to kind of collect itself and become a mass. And I'm going to dump it right onto a floured work surface. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll this out, and I kinda wanna get it as thin as possible in kind of a long rectangle or an oval. Traditionally, when you make puff pastry, you start with your dough and then you take this huge block of butter and you put it in the middle. Then you wrap it up in the dough and then you roll it out and then you fold it, then you chill it, then you take it out, you roll it out, you fold it up, you chill it, you take it out, you roll it out, you fold it up, and you do that a total of 6 times. In this case, I'm doing kind of a cheater version. So I'm rolling my dough out to start, and then rather than starting with a really big block of butter, I'm starting with pre-sliced butter to kind of, get a jump start on the layers. And you just kind of want it maybe less than 1/4 inch thick. All right, so then take all your little slices of butter and just place them all over your dough. And this is gonna look like a ton, but believe it or not, this is what's in puff pastry, and this is what gives it those beautiful layers. And if it gets to the point where you feel like the butter is starting to get too warm, just pop it in the freezer. But as long as you work quickly, it shouldn't be a problem. Now what you're gonna do is you're going to start with the short end that's kind of facing you, and you're gonna fold it over. What you wanna do is make sure there's not too much flour on the inside of the dough. So I'm gonna take a pastry brush here and just brush this off. I'm gonna fold it over. I'm gonna brush it again. And what this is doing is creating all of the layers of a laminated dough, which is what puff pastry is. All in all, we have about 5 layers here. And now we're gonna keep rolling. So to prevent the butter from kind of squeezing out as you roll, what I like to do is just kind of start by tapping it with your rolling pin. What this does is just kind of softens it and starts to break it up, but it still keeps it in there. It still keeps it sandwiched between the layers of bread dough. I actually learned this tip from Jacques Pepin. He does it a little bit differently, but it's still the same idea. And Jacques, if you're watching, I have plenty of room at my counter here. I would love to cook with you. Once we get it to kind of the same size as it was before, then we're gonna repeat the folding process. And this is called laminating. Once again. And what you'll notice is by your third roll, the dough is a little tougher because we've worked so much of the gluten, but that's fine because once you're done with the dough, you're gonna pop it in the refrigerator to chill. Whew. This is a workout, a 15-minute workout. 2, 3, and 4. And just like that, in less than 15 minutes, I made an entire pound of puff pastry. I mean, can you believe it? And just to prove it to you, I've got my handy little scale here. My kitchen scale, which I happen to call Marsha. Check this out. Put it right on top. Is it a pound? It's a pound! Whether you are making tarts, whether you're making turnovers, or even chicken pot pie, this pastry will save you in a pinch. So let us know your favorite ways of using puff pastry at home.